So welcome everyone. My name is Lori Bumbaco. I'm a dietitian and I'm also board certified as a specialist in oncology nutrition. And I work here at the center part-time. So my responsibilities are to provide programs just like this one tonight, as well as co-facilitate a couple of wellness groups. So one is called Weight Loss for Wellness and the other one is Mindful Kitchen. And this is where we integrate all things related to food besides the nutrition part. So how food brings culture and pleasure and enhances our social relationships with one another. So that's what we explore in Weight Loss for Wellness as well as Mindful Kitchen. I also meet individually with any participant who is eligible to learn more specifically about what to eat or not to eat across the continuum of their care and into survivorship. So if you have questions about that, please just reach out to me directly. Hopefully you all received Sabina's email with my attachment, my Word document. So we're going to take a look at that today. She also is going to include in the chat box a link to a quiz that I made. So there it is. I love that. Hopefully that's what it is. And I want you to try this out on your own. Essentially what it is different portion sizes of our favorite picnic foods that equal 100 calories. And so it's a quiz to test yourself to see how much of our favorite picnic foods equal 100 calories. And you might be surprised to learn. I certainly was stumped on a couple of them. So check that out after the program. So without further ado, I'd like to get started. So we're going to pack a healthy picnic this evening. And I just want to start with the farro I'm going to make because we're going to come back to this in about 20 minutes. So while this is cooking, I'm going to start the program. So in my pot of boiling water, this has half a cup of water, half a cup of orange juice that I squeezed from an orange. I'm going to add some of my farro. So most farro, this liquid was brought to a boil and then I added the farro. So most farro is a 2-to-1 ratio. So for a cup of the farro, I would add 2 cups liquid. I'm going to half this portion size tonight from the recipe that I gave you. So I added a half a cup of farro to a cup of the liquid. And I'm going to let it simmer here for about 20 to 25 minutes. Now, when in doubt, just read the label. It's always on the package, and I'm going to show that to you later when we get back into the recipe. So I think that we discussed the development of this program back in December. Sabina might know better. She could probably correct me, but back in December, things were different, right? And so I had the thought of, okay, in the summer, it's a perfect time of year to enjoy some dining outdoors, to maybe have a picnic, to maybe go to some festivals or a park, hear some live music, and gather with others and pack a healthy picnic. Well, things have certainly changed. So what I wanted to do is still present to you what I would describe as a nourishing picnic, but also integrate some suggestions for what is advised that we all do now, given the current situation. So we want to keep food safety in mind, and then we also want to keep our own safety in mind regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. So what we want to think about is how to minimize our risk of exposure to others. So if we wanted to have a picnic, probably the safest bet is to host a picnic right in our own backyard, right? Because then we have control over who else is going to be in our backyard with us. And so maybe we want to invite a lovely family member. Maybe we want to invite a neighbor. We're going to probably stick to a small guest list so that we can minimize exposure and guarantee as best as we possibly can that those who are joining us are also just as concerned about minimizing exposure to the COVID-19 as we are. So if you're going to host anyone in your backyard, think about obviously keeping space, right? So you could, perhaps if you invited a neighbor, you could have your own family have a table and your neighbors are at the other table. and you can keep a safe distance between all of yourselves. Definitely sticking to outdoors makes sense, right? Because we know that as soon as we're indoor, that does increase risk substantially. So let's stay outdoors for our picnic. And I think it's a great idea to consider a hand washing station, or either to create that using a garden hose with some soap, or even better, to keep a hand sanitizer and set this up on a table so that you can continually wash hands, because we know that that is the single best way to prevent yourself from any type of infection. Also, keep distance, right? I mentioned that by maybe designing certain table spots in the backyard. And when you're not eating, think about wearing your mask. When you're planning your menu, I want you to plan accordingly so that you're also minimizing risk. So we want to minimize anyone else's hands or their surroundings and anything on them or in them being close to our food, right? So we want to think about not having large bowls of portions to serve from, but rather probably serve in individual servings. Okay, so for a good example of that is our chips and dip. We don't want everyone reaching into the same bowl, and that would obviously increase risk. A crudité is very popular, or charcuterie. We probably don't want to go there because that's going to, again, increase exposure. We want to keep all hands to ourselves when it comes to planning the menu. And I have a great trick that I'm going to show you in order to help you do that. Also, I love the idea of bring your own of everything. So in fact, I am going to meet a few girlfriends tomorrow, and we're going to meet at a park, and we literally are bringing everything on our own. So I'm going to pack my own chair, I'm going to pack my own food and my own beverages, and we're going to keep to ourselves. That way, you don't have to run the risk again of being exposed. And if you're going to grill, think about serving directly from the grill, right? So if we grill and then put it on a platter and then have everyone take off the platter, that might also increase risk. So now let's talk about what goes on the menu. What is the ideal picnic menu if we're looking to optimize nutrition? So if you were all here, I would hope you would shout out, Lori, you always talk about plants and how healthy plants are for us. So probably most of the recipes are going to incorporate a plant or two. And that's exactly what I have in mind for you tonight. So I also thought it would be helpful to give you some tips. And I have 5 tips that I want you to think about as you approach planning your picnic. Give me a moment because I hear my farro going. So I'm just going to give this a good stir. And just turn it down a little bit. Okay, so the first thing I want you to think about when you're planning a picnic is how to hydrate better. So we all can hydrate with things that are full of sugar or full of calories. For example, a sweet tea or lemonade or even alcoholic beverages. We refer to these beverages as empty calories because what they do is give you a lot of calories for really no nutrition at all. So we want to hydrate better. How can we do that? Well, I would encourage you to try to have water. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, I don't like water. It's hard for me to drink water. It doesn't taste right. It doesn't appeal to me. So don't ask me to drink more water. Well, the best strategy to help you consume more water is to infuse it. So hopefully you've heard of infused waters, and I'm going to give you a couple examples of how to incorporate different fruit, vegetables, and even herbs so that you can make a water that tastes amazing. And I'm going to show you that trick in a moment. Now, sometimes people ask how much is enough, right? Because especially with the weather we've been having, it's been so hot and even humid. So we want to make sure we hydrate as best as we can. Our bodies function optimally when we're well hydrated. So a good rule of thumb is to take your weight and divide it in half. So if you weigh, let's just say 200 pounds, this means you require 100 ounces of water. 100 ounces of water. Now, keep in mind, some of the foods that we eat also have a water content to them. A good example is something like watermelon. right? So we know this has a significant amount of water already present in it. And that would actually count to our fluid intake. So that's a good rule of thumb. Now, if you want to check whether or not you're hydrated, a very simple, not always the most fun, tool to use is to look into the toilet after you urinate. You want to make sure that it is as clear as possible. If the color of your urine is the color of apple juice, this means that you're dehydrated and that you probably need more fluids. Now, when you infuse water, it does actually happen to take in some of the nutrients of whatever fruit, vegetable, or herbs that you happen to put into it. And the way you can tell that is that it will develop a hue. So you might see if you put watermelon or raspberries inside a pitcher of water, it will turn this pretty pink. And those are nutrients. Those are called phytochemicals. And we reap the benefits of that pigment from those fruits and vegetables. So it's not a bad idea to get the flavor and the nutrition from infused water. The second tip I want to bring up is how this time of year, I think it's the season for refreshment, right? So this is the perfect time of year to lighten up our recipes, to enjoy the season and the fruits and the vegetables that they provide. So we want to think about making some changes to our recipes and minimizing those added heavy flavors that use creams and sauces and any dairy products. They're heavy, right? And they also don't hold up very well to heat, so they wouldn't be great for a backyard picnic. So we want to think about vinegars and oils, and this is a lighter way to refresh and a fresher way to enjoy our recipes. Now, I've been going to the farm markets. I'm not sure how anyone else feels comfort-wise with going to the farm markets, but I've been to 3 in the area so far, and I feel pretty reassured with what I've witnessed. You can check online to see what the guidelines of the farm market are. Some of them will allow you to pre-order online and then go to the market the next day, and all you have to do is pick it up. So you can even buy it online ahead of time. So it minimizes the time you actually have to spend in the market. And all of the farmer markets I've been to also have a traffic pattern. So they have you walk in one way and walk out another. And the staff at the farm market reinforces this pretty significantly. And I also noticed that everyone had a mask on. And there weren't as many people as I would see in a grocery store than I did see at the farm market. So I felt pretty safe going there. And I think it's a great opportunity for you to find some inspiration if you feel comfortable going to the market. The next tip I want to bring up is to use herbs and spices, right? So I'm guilty of this. I forget the value that they bring to our recipes. So especially this time of year, right? So think of all the herbs and spices you can possibly use in any and all recipes. Even our allium vegetables, our aromatics like onions and garlic. These impart nutritional value. And what I learned in preparation for this program is they actually are responsible for inhibiting bacteria that would otherwise cause foodborne illness. So we've seen that things like garlic, thyme, cinnamon, rosemary, cloves, that they inhibit E. coli and salmonella. This is amazing. So if we want to reap the benefits of good flavor while minimizing added salt and sugar and fats, as well as reaping the benefits of the nutrition and the food safety aspect, this is like a win-win all around. So we want to make sure we try to take advantage of those things. Now let me pause for a moment because I hear my email going. Sorry about that. Okay, back to business. All right, so the fourth tip I wanted to bring up was how this time of year we can also enjoy plant proteins. Because again, going back to those refreshing recipes, I find that meat-based recipes are often heavy, and they also don't hold up well to the heat, right? We don't want to necessarily have red meat or fish or chicken outdoors with us on a picnic for a significant amount of time. But if we made the switch to plant proteins, These hold up much better in the heat, and they just so happen to offer a different type of nutrition for us. So if we think about things like beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, they can serve to give us the protein that we're looking for, but they're also a package of nutrition. And I often explain plant proteins as being protein plus. So many people are looking for protein and ways to incorporate more protein in their diet, but plant proteins offer more than just protein. They offer fiber as well as a ton of vitamins and minerals. So they're great choices for us to make this time of year. Also, I think that plant proteins like beans and lentils are so versatile. They're inexpensive. We keep them in the pantry for a while, and the sky's the limit in terms of flavoring options. So it's really up to you to take whatever bean or lentil, nut or seed, and start to incorporate different seasonal fruits and vegetables, different seasonal herbs. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a couple recipes tonight. And then the last point is, well, we gotta talk about dessert, right? If we're going to have a picnic, we probably want dessert. So I want to encourage you to sweeten with fruit, because think about this time of year. It's time to eat fruit. It is so sweet because it's fresh. So if we go to the farm market, chances are we will have fruit available that was picked that day. So it's literally only hours old, even minutes old if we get there early enough. And so we don't have to rely on adding sugars to dessert, but we can appreciate the natural sugars that fruit this time of year provides us. And I have a recipe in mind that I'm going to show you that has no added sugars to it, but it tastes delicious. Okay, so let's talk about how to hydrate better. My first tip. Let's infuse some water. What do you say? So what I have here, now I just did this within the last hour. Hopefully you can see it really well, yeah. So when I make infused water, I typically do it overnight. So I will take my pitcher and I'll add whatever combination of fruits, vegetables, and or herbs that I have in mind. And then I'll put some ice and then fill it up with filtered water. And then the next day, I'm ready to go. Like, what a great way to start the day with these refreshing infused waters. So the first combination I have here, it starts with blackberries, and you can see they kind of sank to the bottom. And then thyme, so there's some fresh thyme in here, and then some sliced oranges. Now the point I wanted to make sure you all knew is that with our citrus, so whether it be oranges or lime, which is in my next recipe, or lemon, we don't want to add them until we're about to drink them, because what happens is within an hour, they turn a little bitter or sour. So many people don't care for that flavor. So I happen to, if I did this overnight, I would wait to add the orange slices. Conversely, you can just squeeze the orange juice or squeeze the lemon or squeeze the lime. That generally does not turn sour or bitter if it's kept in there over an hour. So what I would do for this, I'm going to pour some out into a cup for myself. Since you all can't have any, I might as well have it, right? I'm actually going to have the first one, and I'm going to save the second one for later. So this one has in it some sliced cucumbers, some mint, as well as some sliced lime. I think that this is the epitome of refreshment, and I think this is amazing all year long. So this is something I regularly make for myself. It's like a treat. I mean, you almost can't have water any other way. But this especially is so refreshing. And if you think about it, all of those components are so high in water and soothing in a way, right? Think about mint, it's refreshing. Same with cucumber, nice and refreshing. I'm just gonna put this aside. And then what I do is if I don't have a lid for my pitcher, I just take a slotted spoon so that I don't have any of the remnants. And that's what I'm going to enjoy today. Now, I usually get rid of what the contents are. I eat them or I'll toss them within the day and then I'll start fresh. And what I really like about this idea is that it's a gauge for you. So if you're looking to have more fluid and or drink more water during the day, this, you know that this will be 32 ounces. So if it's 10 in the morning and you haven't even started yet, then maybe you can get cracking, right? It's a good gauge for you, a good physical reminder or trigger for you to drink more fluids. So you can, I just see someone put in the chat box, you can discard what's left over, or you can keep, let's say I went through this before the day was up, I could reuse this and until the next day. I would give it a toss the next day. I wouldn't let this sit for 2 nights. Okay, so I'm gonna put this back in the fridge. And I just want to check on my farro. It looks like it's done. So I'm going to take it off the heat and I'm just going to let it cool. And I'm going to go on to my favorite, I think this is my favorite trick of the year so far. And we could use a lot of good tricks this year, right? So if you go to the farm market and you find some yummy vegetables that you would like to dip into a dip, whether it be hummus or any other dip that you have in mind, I think that this is a great trick that I just learned about, and I will be using this indefinitely, not just for picnics, but all year long. So tell me, you have to tell me what you think of this, especially if you put it in the chat. I would appreciate that. All right, so let me show you the next one. I could use a sous chef, I swear. Okay, thank you for bearing with me, everyone. All right, so who here has had applesauce cups? Yeah, totally. My stepson loves these. He actually likes the berry flavored one. So every time he has them, I ask him to save them because we're going to reuse this little cup. Of course, we can recycle this, but we're going to reuse it. So we're going to take our wide mouth mason jar, and guess what fits really nicely right inside that? Our applesauce cup. So what a great thing to hold our dip, right? So in here, I have all these amazing, colorful, cut up vegetables. So I have radishes, I have rainbow carrots. I put some green beans in there that I blanched, some cucumber, some peppers. You put in there whatever your heart desires. And then in here, I'm gonna put my dip. So this is the second dip that's on your recipe handout. And what I used is harissa, which is a Tunisian sauce, or like kind of a, I would call it like a condiment in a way. Like this can go on anything and everything. It's delicious. And it's basically a blend of peppers and spices. It does have a little kick to it. But I find that it's great in almost anything. You could just put it over roasted vegetables, mix it into plain. If I cooked my farro and put a little bit of this in it, it would be delicious. It's also great on eggs. I love this harissa. So with that, I put in the processor walnuts as well as garlic, and then roasted red peppers. So my roasted red peppers, I left on the table over there. Hopefully you all know what those are. I look for ones that are not marinated in oil because the harissa already has some oil, or I can add my own oil to the recipe. And then I also juiced a lemon, and then I just process that through, and it's this beautiful red spicy condiment or dip for our crudité. So now this is lovely to give to someone, right? If they want to travel with this, or they want to use this instead of a veggie platter, this would be a great option. So I'm just going to put this dip inside my cup, and you can add as little or as much as you want. And now you have something that is kind of an individual serving and so helpful, right? Isn't that the best thing ever? I think it is. If you don't want to make a dip and you love your hummus, you could just put your hummus in here. But what a great thing if, you know, if you're going back to work or if you're going over someone else's house, you can bring this with you. It's super portable. And I think what a great trick that is, just to use this leftover applesauce cup. All right. So I have another dip to make with this one that I'm going to show you very quickly. I'm going to take a sip of my infused water. So good. So I found, this is a big mason jar, 3 cups. That was the size that I felt I wanted to use for this, but you can use a smaller one. You could also put a salad in here and then use that cup and make a salad dressing, right? It's such an easy, and then it keeps your salad dry because you don't want a soggy salad, right? That wouldn't work out so good. Okay, so I have to move my processor. I'm gonna move the camera so you can see what I'm gonna do in the processor. And this is a green goddess dip that takes advantage of avocado and some of our herbs. So I have here, I just wanted to point out about lemon, because I often forget this with lemon. It is so nutritious. It's really just like something that adds flavor, right? It's kind of an afterthought. We just spritz it on things. But did you know that if you had the entire juice of a lemon, that's 1.5 times the amount of vitamin C that you need. 1.5 times in the day. That's a lot. So vitamin C, hopefully you all understand, is so important for our immune strength. It also is an antioxidant. It is the strongest antioxidant that we could eat in our diet. And what that means is that it cleans up the garbage that's floating around in our body that could otherwise wreak havoc on our body cells and change them and transform them into potentially a carcinogenic cell, a carcinogen that would damage an otherwise healthy cell. And so the vitamin C helps repair that, and really important for everyone to be enjoying that regularly. So besides lemon, there also is a good amount of vitamin C in most of our fruits and vegetables. So especially our citrus, especially our bell pepper, and that's why I included it in my crudité. It's great for us this time of year. Okay, so now I'm gonna make the green goddess dip. And so this is a super easy one. I'm gonna start with my avocado. And I know this is ready for me to eat because it yields to some pressure. It's a little soft, right? So that means it's ready for me. And I just like to score it, so I just work my way around. Be careful if you're doing this. And then I just give it a good twist. And that's how I start the process of working this avocado. I just use a spoon to take the stone or the pit out. And we're gonna put that aside. Now sometimes if I'm slicing this to put on a salad or to put on my toast or a sandwich, I'll just slice it right out of here and then carve it out. We're just gonna add this whole avocado to my processor. Now, you probably all know avocado is botanically a fruit. So talk about a package. I'm going to answer that question in a moment, Gina. Talk about a package. Avocado has so much to offer. It's a fruit. So it actually has a ton of potassium in it, which is something that is a mineral that we do not eat enough of in this country. It also has a good amount of fiber. And what I learned is that the fiber that's in avocado feeds our gut, the microbiota in our gut, and it turns it into a very favorable environment in the gut which secretes these substances that are anti-inflammatory throughout our whole body. So this is a package, literally, of yum and good nutrition. There also is some melatonin in avocado. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about melatonin in a bit. I'm going to add the other half to that. Then I'm going to add my herbs. So in here, I have basil, I have chives, and I have mint. I went a little crazy here. It's really beautiful and vibrant and green. So I'm going to add this entire mix to my processor. I'm going to save this bowl to use after. And then I'm going to add the juice of a lemon. Now, there was a question about eating the lemon rind. You can, it's edible. I know people that pickle their lemon rinds, and certainly zesting the lemon is a good idea as well, because there are special compounds that we find throughout the entire plant, right? So it's not just the vitamin C that's in the juice of the lemon, but the peel is where we find some terpenes, and terpenes possess anti-cancer properties. They actually tell cancer cells to stop growing, to stop spreading. So it's a good idea, even if you wanted to zest the peel of the lemon or lime, for example, in our infused water, that would be a great way to use the entire plant. All right, so I'm going to add this in, and then I'm going to give it a whirl. So just bear with me, it's going to get noisy. Now, I don't know about you all, but I don't mind texture. I actually like a little texture to my food, so you can process this as little or as much as you'd like. I kept it a little chunky, and I kept some of those herbs whole. But I'm just going to show you some of it, okay? It's really so yummy, so refreshing too, and I think it's a nice complement to the other spicy harissa dip. So this is kind of cool and creamy, and this adds a little heat. So I think between the two, it'd be tough to decide which one I'm going to dip my vegetables in. But this is a great one, and they're both great. But they will keep for a couple days in the fridge. You might want to add a little extra lemon to this if it starts to brown, or just discard that because it doesn't visually look all that appealing in my opinion. But it's technically edible, so it's up to you to decide. Okay, so those are our two dips. So I'm going to just push them aside. How we doing? Any questions? The avocado goes so well. So, and you know what? When I was in school, fat was the enemy. And fat was regarded as something that we needed to stay away from as much as possible. And that's a shame because it's not fat. It's actually the type of fat that matters. And the type of fat that's in avocado, as well as many other nuts and seeds, is a healthful fat. And we find that it doesn't necessarily raise weight, right? So people that eat healthy fats, they actually manage their weight very well. It provides a great satiating effect. So sometimes when people are complaining that they're hungry all the time, I do a little troubleshooting and make sure that they're incorporating some of those healthy fats because they hold us for quite some time. But as I mentioned with the avocado, it's more than just the fat that it contains, right? It's this package of nutrition. So try to consider that whenever you're evaluating any of the foods that you're thinking about incorporating in your diet. Okay, so let's move on to some salads. Of course, I'm going to make salads, right? But these are just not any old ordinary salads. We are going to kick these salads up a notch, and we're going to make them hearty. And they're going to have protein and fiber and a mix of more than just your standard old salad. So the first one I wanted to show you is a summer Waldorf salad. So it's a take on a Waldorf salad, but it's lightened up. It's refreshing. and it's not using that heavy mayo, which would not be a great thing this time of year in the heat to hold up. So this is going to incorporate a lot of vegetables, but especially fruit. We're really going to sweeten this one up. So I'm going to take my farro that is off the stove here. And I'm going to first add, hang on, I'm going to go get my other stuff. So what I did is I did a little prep work, right? Because I'm here by myself. So I cut up the fruit that goes in this Waldorf salad. And what is in here are apples, red grapes, and also orange segments, as well as some chopped up celery, and then some mint. Now, I decided to put this in a strainer because we know that these ingredients are high water content, and I don't want a mushy salad. So I left them in the strainer because I'm going to come back to them after a while, but you'll see there's a good amount of liquid in this bowl. So rather than having a soggy salad, I'm already starting with something that's crisp and refreshing. So I'm going to take my mixed up fruit with celery and mint, and I'm going to put this in a bowl. Like already it's gorgeous, right? Now, I had a conversation with friends yesterday, and the group was divided in two. Some of my friends do not think that fruit belongs in a salad. So if that's you, that's okay. You could add different vegetables. You could take the fruit out of this if fruit is not your thing, right? I am on the side of fruit in my salad. I think it adds a nice dimension in terms of flavor. So you get to decide for yourself. That's what's nice about this recipe. All right, so to this, I am going to add the farro, which is now cooled off. I'm going to add it right from my pot. And if you haven't yet had farro, oh my goodness, I got to tell you, you don't know what you're missing. It's the best whole grain, I think, out there. It's very popular right now. I'm seeing it on a lot of menus. And I'm just going to show you the farro that I have here. This is, in most grocery stores will carry farro. I happen to love this one. It cooks quickly, again, 20-25 minutes, and it's so nutritious. In a serving, there are 6 grams of protein, 5 grams of fiber, and a good amount of potassium, and 10% of the iron that we need in this farro, in a serving. 10% of the iron. That's amazing, right? Okay. So I'm just going to incorporate these together. And I'm going to make my dressing. So for my dressing, I'm going to add, I have to look at everything. I have some fresh squeezed orange juice. Now you could use a regular store-bought brand orange juice. I decided I had my oranges, so I'm going to get some extra, and I'm just going to squeeze some. So this is about 3 tablespoons. And then to that, I'm going to add some seasoned rice vinegar. And this is similar to the farro. You will find this in most grocery stores. It's different than rice vinegar in that it just adds a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt. So it adds a little bit of flavor. If you do not care for that, you certainly could use plain old rice vinegar. And there's different types of seasoned rice vinegars on the market. So just take a look and see if there's any that you might enjoy. So to this, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons. Okay. As well as a tablespoon of a neutral oil. So you can use whatever oil doesn't impart a lot of flavor. You could even use olive oil here if you wanted to. I would use grape seed oil. That's my preferred neutral oil tasting oil. Or you could use canola oil or vegetable oil. That's fine. what we have in the kitchen is sunflower seed oil, which is pretty mild, giving it a good sniff test to make sure it's still fresh. So I'm going to use that in this recipe. Sunflower seed oil is high in vitamin E, another strong antioxidant. Not as strong as vitamin C, but close. So we know that's good for our immune system and for its cancer-fighting properties. And then to this, I'm going to add some spice. So I'm going to add some cinnamon and some cardamom. So a half a teaspoon of the cinnamon and a quarter teaspoon of the cardamom. Really interesting flavor, I think. So we're going to mix this together. Just whisk it quickly. And cardamom is also an anti-cancer spice. Very commonly used in like this, I think it's a seasonal spice, I would say. Like I see it very often used in the fall. I think it imparts a really interesting aroma. It also, I did not know this about cardamom, but it revs up our natural T killer cells. So that those are part of our immune system. And so here we have these spices again that impart flavor, a nice aroma, but also benefit our health. So we're going to mix this in with our farro and fruit, and we're going to just combine. Now, if you're not ready to serve this just yet, you can refrigerate this. But you notice there's a couple key ingredients that are missing. Hopefully you notice that. That's our arugula and our walnuts. I would wait to add them until you're ready to serve because the arugula is going to get soggy, and same with the walnuts. Think about walnuts like a crouton, essentially, right? You want them to be crunchy and not soggy. And so I would wait to add this as I'm ready to serve this. Walnuts, gosh, I talk about one of the best nuts out there that we could eat. Walnuts pack a punch. And so this is the salad. I'm going to add the arugula, actually. So what I'm going to do, I just take, this is one of the best inventions ever, right? Triple wash greens. You can even wash these if you don't feel comfortable using right from the bag, but most of them are washed already and ready to go. So as long as my hands are washed, I'm safe. So I just like to add a couple handfuls. Voila. Now, if you don't have arugula or you don't care for it, you can use baby spinach. That would be a great alternative here. And what I'm going to do is just toss that in. It's really so beautiful and so hearty and satisfying, but yet light and refreshing, I think, which is what we're after, again, this time of year, right? And then we're going to top it with our walnuts. So walnuts, again, are another package of nutrition. Healthy fats in walnuts, the omega-3 fats, right? So that's typically what we find in fish, but walnuts have a different type of omega-3 fat, so that's anti-inflammatory. And then walnuts also suppress the aromatase enzyme. So I mention this almost all the time when I'm speaking to groups. I just did a group last Monday, and we used walnuts intentionally because I wanted to share that point that walnuts have been shown to suppress the aromatase enzyme. So it means it suppresses the activity of aromatase, meaning it produces less estrogen. And this is super relevant for many of the people that I work with. So using walnuts regularly is a great idea, especially in this application, I think, because croutons are just kind of boring, especially if it's store-bought, or if I go to a restaurant and I get croutons, I just think they're not that special. But you can get the crunch that you might be after by substituting something like walnuts. So give that a go. That's one of my favorite recipes. All right, on to the next one. We are moving along. And I'm a little worried, Sabina, because I see my battery is low. I don't know if we have an iPhone charger here.
Check my desk.
Okay. Why don't we see how far I go? Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone, but we should be okay. but just in case I drop you, it's my battery. Okay, so we'll keep on going, I know. All right, so the next recipe is using one of my favorites. It's in the legume family. For once, I'm not going to use beans, but I'm going to use a cousin. I'm going to use lentils, right? So you so often hear me speak the high praises of legumes, from beans to lentils to even split peas, because goodness gracious, are they some of the most nutritious things we could eat, that I thought I should not have a picnic. I can't have a picnic without lentils, right? So now we're going to use a recipe that incorporates our lentils. Hold on one second. I'm going to gather everything together. All right. Whew, I'm getting a workout in here. So what I actually pre-made the lentils, and what I'm going to do is reheat these very quickly in the microwave for a good reason, because what does heat do? But it enhances flavor. So I'm going to add a dressing to this, but it's going to take that dressing to the next level. It's going to really flavor those lentils better because of the heat. So I'm just going to pop them in the microwave just quickly for a minute. And I'm going to work on my dressing for this one. So this is a cherry lentil salad. And if you wanted to use beans, you certainly could for this as well. I suppose you could use chickpeas or maybe beans if that's what you had on hand. This would be a great substitution for this. So I am going to now mix the dressing. So in here, I have my vinegar, my oil, my green onions, my salt and pepper. So simple. And I need tablespoon. So the recipe calls for red wine vinegar. I don't really care for red wine vinegar. That's my preference. So I decided to substitute what we have here, which is apple cider vinegar. I happen to really like my apple cider vinegar. So this is the product I'm using. This is from a brand called Spectrum. And look how yummy cloudy that is. So that is a distinct quality of, or a characteristic of a quality apple cider vinegar. It's unpasteurized, so it's retaining more of the polyphenols that are in this. So to this, let me just make sure I'm reading this properly. I'm going to add the vinegar, and I need 2 tablespoons. And just like I sought out a quality vinegar, I also sought out a quality olive oil. And so every time I'm in the kitchen, I'm showing this one off because it's a great olive oil. It's fresh, and we know that because of the date on the back of the bottle. It literally posts when the olives have been harvested and when they're best by. So this is a characteristic of, and this is available at most grocery stores. This is characteristic of a quality oil as well. You can always give it the sniff test. So an olive oil should have kind of a robust smell and taste. If it smells stale, it will smell almost like a crayon. I think that's the best way of putting it. And then you've lost the quality of that oil. It's like almost no point in using it, right? So we want to take good care of this oil too and keep it out of the sun light and away from extremes in terms of the heat and away from oxygen, right? So we always want to keep it protected from the elements, so to speak. Okay. And then to this, I'm going to add, sorry, I need someone to read the instructions to me. I'm going to add my green onions and salt and pepper. And we're just going to whisk this together. So this is our dressing. I mean, how simple is that? And then we're going to add this into my warm lentils. They're not piping hot, but they're just warmed over. So what this will do again is carry that flavor over much, much better. We're just going to combine the two. And I'm going to save this bowl so that you can see the final product as well. I like my clear bowls for that reason. So we're just combining the two together. Already it smells delicious. So this is another example of a hearty salad. Now if I'm not gonna serve it right away, I'm not gonna add my mint and my cherries, but I'm serving it to you. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like. So I took my cherries and some basil. Sorry, I said mint, it's basil in here. And we're gonna combine the two. So I'm just gonna incorporate through. And I'm gonna show you what that looks like. I think this one is really pretty as well. And this is another example of a hearty salad, right? It's not just your average old salad. This is really gonna pack a punch because of the fiber, because of the protein. You get some interesting flavor here. The cherries really are spectacular. So hopefully you can kind of see the end result there with that. And you can see how that would work really well with an alternate bean. If you don't care for lentils, if you wanted to use beans, that would certainly work out.
Lori, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned heating up the lentils. Will you serve your salad warm or you let it cool before you serve?
I would let it cool. Great question. Do you serve this lentil salad warm or cool? But I wonder how it would taste warm. But I think this would be best chilled, right? Or just left to room temperature and then served. That's a great question. Give it a little taste. If you would care for more vinegar there or a little more salt and pepper, you certainly could add that in. But that is such a simple recipe, I think. And I think a great use for leftover lentils. So if you made lentils for something else, make a little extra and then just save it and you can whip this up easily. All right. So we're on to dessert. Are you ready for dessert? I also wanted to point out about cherries. You know, they are superstars also. They're packed with vitamin C. Like I keep bringing up vitamin C, but I think if we you could see how if we intentionally take advantage of the fruits and the vegetables of the season, we're gonna get these immune supporting nutrients that are vital for us, but also have cancer fighting properties. So it's a win-win all around when we have these fruits and vegetables and that are in season taste phenomenal. So just think about that. Now basil, I just want to show you what I got for the basil. Basil is, I think, Greek for king, and it's like the king of herbs, right? So I treated myself. I went to Trader Joe's, and I got this guy for like $5. I'm not even kidding you. And I went to town on it. It's a little droopy, so it needs water. As soon as I add water to it, it's going to perk right up. That's what hydration does for us, right? So same thing goes with our herbs. But this basil is just loves this weather this time of year. So it will grow like wild. So I'm going to go home and I'm either going to plant it in a container or even just put it in the ground and it will go like crazy. I'm going to have so much basil to use and all summer long. It's really the king of the summer herb. So think about, it smells delicious. So think about how you could add this and even just keep year round if you had a windowsill and you wanted to plant some fresh basil to pick off and use in recipes. Again, it adds flavor, it adds nutrition. All right, dessert time. So I had to showcase, obviously, more fruit for dessert, but we're gonna top it with something a little lighter than cream. So what I wanted to show you was a cashew cream, and I've made it before. I think it's a great substitute for cream, and it gives it a nice sweet flavor because I'm going to use dates in this with this cashew, and I'm going to blend them together to create a cream to layer with my berries and my mint. So we can call this the red, white, and blue fruit salad. How clever, right? All right, so I'm gonna just plug in, this is a NutriBullet, so I'm gonna plug it in here. I'm gonna have to move that just quickly. And I have in here my cashews that I've been soaking since I arrived at the center, which was a few hours ago. I just soaked them in some water. You can soak them for as little or as long as you want. It probably, I would say the minimum is 30 minutes. And I'm just gonna drain the water off. And I'm gonna add them to my vessel along with my dates. And so I put 3 dates in here because we're gonna make this a little sweet. Dates, if you haven't already had, they are like nature's candy. They are so sweet, but they're a fruit. So remember, even though this has some sugar in it, it's the natural sugar that belongs in this nutrient-dense package. So dates are a fruit, therefore have much more to offer than just natural sugar. There's actually some potassium, some magnesium in here, a ton of fiber, which changes the way we digest and metabolize those natural sugars. So all the more reason to use dates, especially if you're looking to substitute some of the sugar in your recipes. And this is a great example of doing that. So I'm gonna just take the dates out of the liquid. And I'm just gonna, I put a little extra liquid in case I need this to blend. I think I'm gonna add some. It usually needs a little liquid. It's gonna get loud again. Oh, I forgot to add the vanilla. So we want some vanilla, right? So I'm gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. If you had some vanilla in the pods, even better. You could scrape some real vanilla into this, that would be delicious. And that adds, what I like about vanilla, it's just like some herbs and spices and the aromatics, it adds that aroma. So that also entices all of the senses, right? Okay, you're back. I have 10% on my battery. So I'm gonna make sure I make this for you. So I might have to just give this a couple shakes. It might need a little more water. If you have a bullet and you're familiar with that, wonderful. If you want to use a blender or a processor, you certainly could for this as well. I just have my leftover avocado dip in the other one, so I'm going to use the bullet. Okay, so I would give that a couple more goes until it's really creamy, smooth. But just for the sake of showing this to you, I'm just gonna assemble this. So I did the same with when I prepped my berries. I put them over the strainer. That way I don't have soggy desserts, right? Who wants that? So you'll see there's a little reserved liquid here. But in here I have some chopped up strawberries and my blueberries with some mint. And I like to just layer this in a mason jar. Again, it's like an individual serving. So these would be great to make ahead of time if you wanted. And certainly you could also add some nuts in here. but then I would add my cream and make sort of like a parfait. Now the cream isn't as creamy as it's supposed to be because I didn't give it more attention, but I didn't want to lose you. So I'm just showing you how I would assemble this. It smells divine. I can't wait to dig in. And this has no added sugar, so think about that for dessert, but yet delicious. It packs a lot of flavor, especially because the mint, I think it adds this nice refreshing element to this. I have a little bit left on my finger. So then voila, we have a nice little mason jar, red, white, and blue summer dessert. I encourage you to try that one because it's a great tip. Okay, so before I lose you all, I know we still have a little bit of time. I'm wondering if there's any questions or any comments that anyone else has. I don't know if I missed any on the chat.
Okay, so if you're making this blueberry strawberry salad or dessert for your family and you don't need individual ones, do you just stir it all together so cream is on top of everything, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I would look at this cashew cream almost like whipped cream, right? So you can chop up your berries and your mint and then have it in a big bowl and then portion it out into individual bowls and then just top this cream right on top. Yeah, and the cream is great for a lot of other uses. If you wanted to cut up some graham crackers and dip it into the cream, it's delicious. Okay, thank you so much. Great question. Any other questions or thoughts or comments?
Or I'm not sure if you maybe already answered these, and maybe I missed it, but one question was, does grapeseed oil substitute well for olive oil usually? And then where can people buy pitted or halved cherries?
Pitted cherries. Does anyone ever see them anywhere? I usually don't. And I'm not one to have a lot of kitchen gadgets, so I actually do not have a cherry pitter. So I did all of that by hand. It's a labor of love, but I enjoy it because I think it's a way to de-stress for me to like pit every single cherry. So I haven't seen them pitted anywhere. If anyone has and you want to share, I think that'd be helpful.
You can buy them in the freezer section, but I don't know if I can find them anywhere, fresh, but they do sell them in the freezer.
Yeah. You can find them frozen pitted.
Right. I buy
That's
them
what
at
I was
Costco
thinking,
all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Sandy and Cheryl. That's a great tip. I think too, it's good to mention that frozen fruit, frozen vegetable they're extra nutritious. They're great options for us. They're also convenient. If you want to use them in any of these recipes, certainly by all means do it. If it means you do it, I am happy that you do. So don't worry about fresh versus frozen. And certainly that's a time saver. If you find the frozen pitted cherries, saves you some time and it's something you wanted to use for the lentil salad, definitely. Usually what I do with frozen fruit is I take it out the night before I'm going to use it so that it has an opportunity to thaw. And Roberta's sharing that at the Evanston Farm Market, you've seen pitted cherries. Who's doing the work for us? I'm willing to pay for it. That's great. And then the other question was grapeseed oil. So grapeseed oil is just different than olive oil. I would say that olive oil probably tops the list for most anyone I'm working with to use as their oil of choice. It is loaded with cancer fighters. Primarily it's anti-inflammatory, and that's what we like about olive oil, especially if you find a quality one like the one I pointed out. So grapeseed oil, and it happens to be because of the olives. That's why the olives, as it is, have cancer fighter properties and from the polyphenols. So grapeseed oil doesn't have the polyphenols that the olive oil does, but it doesn't make it any less of a healthy fat. And I shared that I use it because it's neutral, and it holds up to heat pretty well. So if I'm going to be cooking with it, I can use that as well. But it just offers you different nutritional properties. It's a healthy fat in a way that it has mono and polyunsaturated fats, which are not associated with atherosclerosis or to be pro-inflammatory like the saturated fats are. So when we have high-fat dairy, fried foods, most of our meat does contain saturated fat. And when we overconsume that day after day after day, which is what many Americans do, that tends to be pro-inflammatory. So we want to try to make those substitutions and swaps when we can.